Hello?
He pressed the button. I'm so glad it was that.
Has that ever happened before? The one's upside down?
Not to me.
Not to me either. What? Now open my Zoom. Why? Okay, I'm opening the meeting. We'll go back
Oh,
into the
wow.
meeting.
Right.
That's a new one. Poor Sam, how's she doing?
She's working through it. Michael's here to support.
Well, you're in good hands.
Okay, now I've joined us. Again, this is the second time I've closed it and reopened it. That was weird.
I see it.
Weirdness going on.
Recording in progress.
Oh, hey, there's some speakers. Hot dog.
Yeah, they're out.
Oh man, there's still no video feed on this though. Hmm.
I watched your show, but just now you let me know.
Thank you, yes, I will let you know. I have all of the reinforcements here.
I see that. I understand. You have people smarter than me.
That's smart, me too. Ooh, Matt's calling you. Oh, hey! I see it! Thank you, Christine.
Hello, this is Jennifer.
Okay, it's
Yeah,
working now.
the
What
upside
happened?
down thing, I got nothing.
How did you fix the camera?
I think when you restarted it, it did whatever
just did it.
whatever had a problem with it, redid it,
Thank
because
you.
I just turned it on
You're
and turned on
awesome.
the mics. I do have to tell you.
Yes.
That is so, that,
Can't read it, I'm not ready to read
This one's right side up.
hello,
Right.
hello.
Yeah, at least one of them is.
See, this isn't working. So what we ended up doing last night, is I don't know, maybe one of these can share.
Okay.
But all the others are, you know, and we're gonna work on it, but this one is kind of a bugger. It's really,
Meredith is sitting here. Maybe I'll make Carmen sit here. Let's see what he's doing. He's in lots of meetings.
you what?
He's in lots of meetings. He's
Yeah,
on city
he is.
council, so I bet you he knows that this is all on.
Well, I
Weird.
wonder if we can,
That's dark.
do I have enough space to?
You're gonna steal it?
Well, I think about just scooching down and just scooch that one up out of the way.
Okay.
You know, if we scooch everybody down
Yeah.
and just scooch that one back.
Back where? Like back
Make
here?
this back, yeah, and maybe face it away and just,
Face you down. None for you.
yeah.
Broken. Okay.
Testing, testing, yeah.
Over here.
Move.
Come down here to Jennifer. And Jennifer's would come mine. And I don't ever say anything anyway, sit.
You don't ship them all down, right? Just the one south?
Oh, God.
That one stays there. Oh, and then we'll just leave this one here. Oh, yeah, you guys.
It's okay.
We can share one.
Yeah, this is perfect. We just won't use this. But we'll just use
But
this.
then I don't have one for here. I need
Oh,
this one
do
here.
that.
I need that
And then
one
we'll leave it
there.
And then Jen
And
and
then
I.
your two should still work.
Yeah, our two
You
are
should be
fine.
good.
Okay, phew, okay.
That makes
That's all.
sense?
Yes. This one is broken.
Remember how we couldn't hear,
Yes, I remember. It was weird too. She just went to the one right over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
usually
it
don't have any
is
problems.
okay, did you get her flipped over? No. What in the heck is that?
I don't know. I've never seen it do that before. I usually just come in and turn it on.
Oh, I was the last one to touch it last night, so I
It's all-
don't know what I.
Well, at least you came in and just pushed the button for me and things started working.
The whole screen's upside down. There was a display settings. Rotate
I
screen.
think it's the Proxima or whatever, the projector that's the problem.
I know what to do.
This one's right side up.
Yeah,
Maybe
that
that
one's
one will invert when you put that one.
I just know that core is most likely going to be online. So I definitely want to make sure it's going to work. Everything else is streaming. The Granicus is doing that weird thing again where it's the gray screen. But YouTube looks great, so no, it's working.
YouTube looks good.
Yeah.
And then Granicus was,
Is that
let me
weird?
go double check Granicus while he's playing on that.
Thank you.
And it should clearly be okay if it's broadcast to the YouTube properly.
Yeah.
but-
It's right side up on YouTube, which is also helpful.
Is it the projector?
I think so. I think it's, yeah, it's got a, this is whether you have it sitting on a table or hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
And I'm pretty good at finding the options, but I have such a time trying to read upside down.
Jason, are you all right? Good. All right, we got to.
Just work.
There we go.
Is it under
Front
projection?
table, that's the one.
Water,
Okay, you're there.
water determines if they're like flares. Sure.
Weird thing is so, is that, you know how it's full screen there? Granicus is projecting like this with all of your desktop icons on it.
So why?
I don't know. It's going out to YouTube that way too.
Really?
How much time you got left?
Not a lot.
No, since maybe restart.
But for the mess with it.
I don't blame you. It is weird. It's the projector. You must have hit a button last night.
Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, no worries.
Oh, sorry, Jane.
Oh, gosh.
Sam here in the road with my elbows all spread out.
And I don't know.
I don't know either, and I don't, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, everybody can see it.
Everyone can see it. And
Just has that extra stuff on the
with this little time left and not knowing what the heck.
I
I think there's something weird in your Granicus, is what I think, my friend.
Thought it was gonna be all alone.
At least it's.
No, you got your name. You got your name there somewhere.
Well done.
It's probably downstairs, probably the one of the ones.
Are you, I think you're in the middle. Yeah.
Right there.
Right there?
Who's next to me?
Yeah,
Carmen.
guess so.
I got you. Turn it off, you can see.
Same name tag. Real good.
And then let's see if Carl's here.
Do I know which one?
Yeah, one.
I want to say it's HDMI one or two, but
Already dealt with several of these before, but without a quorum.
I know, yeah. I was looking at it, I was going, well, we talked about that. We couldn't vote on it.
Well, we've already talked about that, we've talked about Wall Street, we've talked about the out years, and we've talked about,
Yeah,
and this.
and the one over on Merrill, I think it was, no, was it Merrill or? The one up on the hill over here behind Just by Toyota.
Oh, that, we, Coos Toyota.
Yeah, it's this one here. That is bar. This one,
Okay,
parlor.
we got the big new one. We're talking about hall before.
Oh, how many times?
We had the big, all the people here. Now we have the opposite opinion here. They need to go.
They need to go, yeah.
And that was the one that Patrick looked at. He said, they're okay. And then I talked to him after that. He says, they're okay, but
They're not doing it.
they're a hazard.
Yeah,
They're past their prime.
yeah.
And they're rotting.
We should never have birch trees on the street.
And there's another one right behind the fire department. That cross street behind the fire department. That's
Oh, yes, those right there, yeah.
I don't like those either. And then they planted new ones.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't know if we've met. My name's Jennifer Worcey. I'm the city engineer, deputy director. You're stuck with me today.
Okay,
Greg is on vacation and Dave had a family emergency.
okay.
Did you see Sam's email?
Yes,
Okay. And all we're doing is suggesting, you're the chair, you get to do whatever you want. Did you need us to print anything up for you? Because this isn't after the fact and it should have been here.
no, it's fine. You don't need to redo it.
Okay, okay,
We'll address it
okay.
when we need to.
And then this one's gone away, so it's one less thing we have to worry about. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I just messaged Carmen to see if he could hear us, so hopefully we can just looking at the scooter.
Countdown by days. Watch out. That's your official countdown. 84. The countdown tower. I didn't do that. I can tell you how many years it's been since. I can tell you there's a lot of people that have learned that.
I don't know.
Trio, second street, anyway. Good. Second street. No. It was just a matter of time when it broke off. Part of it was on the road. I just didn't want it to be on me.
Do we want to go ahead and start?
Yes.
Which means we got a full agenda.
There you go.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Chair, would you mind if we just took a quick minute and reminded everybody when they're speaking to press the button, and so the green light is on? And either you can leave that on, or you can just press it when you want to speak, and that's so everybody online can hear.
So you want the green light on?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's easy just to leave it on.
okay. So who are we missing today?
Name tags. Carmen is, name tag is here.
Patrick and Carmen?
Carmen's online.
Carmen's online?
Carmen Matthews is online.
Okay. So Patrick is the only one that we're missing. So I guess we'll go ahead and move to the citizen input,
Not related to agenda items.
not related to agenda items. Anybody here that is not on the agenda? Okay, moving forward. After the fact tree removal requests, first one's over on North Main Street. It's already been done.
I'll make a motion to
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
okay, we have a motion made to approve that removal at 430 North Main Street. And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. That one has been approved. The next one is at 833 Anderson.
This is an after the fact also?
This is an after the fact as well. That's the one that's down there behind the doctor's offices, their dental offices. We discussed it at one of our previous meetings, but we didn't have a quorum.
Yeah.
If I think it's about
I
that.
vote for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion made to accept this removal that's already been done at 833 Anderson, and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. That is approved. We have one more tree removal request that is after the fact, and that's down number 5 on the agenda under tree removal requests.
Number 5 on the agenda.
Little history on that one. I initiated that removal. We had a cherry tree that was split out at the base, had a pretty significant lean to it. I felt it was a safety issue to park users, so I authorized removal of the tree.
Okay. I looked at the photos that you did, and yes, it's pretty split there at the bottom. It would be, get a good wind or something like that, and it would really cause it to fall.
Yeah, cherries, when they start to go, they're gone.
Yep.
So I agree with that.
Yes?
My name's Matt Coleman. I own 3H Tree Service. We're new in your.
Excuse me, do you want to come up to the front so people online can hear? Thank you.
My name's Matthew Holman. I own 3H Tree Service. We've been in service about 1.5 years now. So I believe the first 2 agenda items were ours. And we didn't have any idea how this whole system worked. So I appreciate the patience of the tree board and all of that, and the city's patience in dealing with us and all of that to get the system in place. And we're here now to represent another client. But anyway, we appreciate it very much. So thank you for your time.
Okay.
Good, Matt. Thank you.
Any further comment, John?
That's all I have.
Okay. Has everybody had a chance to look at the pictures of that, the one in Mingus Park?
What page is it?
44.
44?
I looked at the pictures, but I just wanted to look at them again. Yes.
So I'll make a motion to approve the tree removal at Mingus Park Tree as an after the fact.
And anybody want to second that?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made to accept the tree removal after the fact request at Mingus Park. Have a
Getting worse.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody?
Sound is ringing.
So, one more after the fact tree removal. And that's the 895 Pine Avenue.
That's an after the fact?
That's after the fact. There again, we had a tree, alder tree with a damaged base, with a lean that if it had come over, it would have struck a house, so we authorized removal of that tree.
That's this one, the one that's leaning so badly?
Page 25.
I have 31 on that one. Might start on 25.
Yeah, it looks like page 25 is where it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's the same tree. Okay, so I need an approval or a motion on that one, in the one that's up on Pine in the right-of-way that's been already removed.
I move that we approve the after the fact removal at 895 Pine Avenue.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
Okay. Have a motion to approve the, prior, after the fact removal of the pine tree, or the alder tree at 895 Pine that's in the right-of-way. Have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, down to the real tree removal requests that have not been approved. 375 North 4th Street.
So these trees will be around the Al Pierce offices. We've dealt with several trees in the past, smolder, I think, flowering plum trees, that have just outlived their useful existence and need to come down. Phone call generated while I was talking on a different issue. They asked me to come take a look at them. I'm recommending removal of the remaining trees at all their expense.
I think about 4 of them out of however many there were are gone now.
Right.
I think there's 4 or 5 left. There's one across the street. It's not down on the same property, but it's across the street in front of Merrill. Same, it's bigger, but it's the same age.
Issue, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not included in this, but it's still, I just walked by on the way down, it's still got a limb scar, and it's not long either. They've all reached about their age.
They've what, 60, 70 years?
They were planted in the 40s,
So
that's according to the Alper.
almost 90 years then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Are we gonna require a tree, trees put back in there?
It
They're on
could
the s-
easily be. I mean, the
Okay.
one across the street has been replaced, but the big one that never came out. So
Okay.
replacing, I'm sure that Al Pierce would do that from the
Yeah,
representative that I talked to, but
okay. Typically,
I would
we,
probably recommend against it because there are utility lines under those trees.
there are,
okay.
Can we ask that they provide trees to be planted somewhere else?
That would be something I think the tree board could do.
So John, if the utility lines are okay now, those trees at that height, couldn't a smaller tree be put in there? What's the clearance? Do you have 20 foot?
it's like,
I see communication lines, so I'm gonna guess they probably start at 17 feet and go up.
Okay,
maybe lower than that.
well,
Yeah.
we
And
we
that-
don't,
Obviously, these trees have been trimmed around those lines in the past, and that probably has created some of the problems that we're facing right now.
Yes.
Mhm.
okay. Well, we need to keep up our tree inventory as the best we can for the city,
Yes.
but
So
okay.
do we want to ask Al Pierce to provide us with trees to plant somewhere else?
Well, I think the problem there, Cora, is where we put them. There's, the parks are pretty full. We're finding it difficult to find places to put trees in the city of Coos Bay that are not in the right of way. I would say no to putting them somewhere else.
Do you have any suggestions for anything low that might be suitable for pruning?
Yes, I'm sure there's something on the approved tree list. Styrax would be a good choice. They'll never get too large, and they produce flowers. I'm sure that there's something on the tree list that will stay under 18 feet.
Yeah, this is something that will provide that, those are beautiful trees when they bloom,
True.
just not beautiful trees when they're laying on the ground.
Right.
So is it something that would be, have some bloom to it, Styrax?
Sure.
They get the little white bells, don't they?
Right. And there's others on the list that would work. I don't know that we need to make a decision now
No.
on what has to go in, but I guess more importantly that I would like to see something go back in, maybe even not as many, but something to give that 4th Street kind of a look of Tree City, right?
We're going to either have to do something or they're going to do it on their own. So I suggest that we do something and suggest that we put in that we'd like trees replaced but not that species.
Okay.
Suitable species to the tree board.
Okay, you want to make a motion?
I make the motion that we permit Al Pierce to take out the trees in question and talk to them about replacing it with suitable trees.
Okay, have a motion?
I'll second.
Okay, have a motion to allow Pierce to remove those trees that are adjacent to the property there on North Fourth and what's the other street?
Island,
Island. And replace them with a suitable tree trees from the approved tree list. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Will the city send a letter to them, please?
We can.
Okay, thank you. And if they need assistance with approved tree lists, they can talk they can come and talk with us. We can make some suggestions for them. Okay. Moving on, we're going to jump to number 3, 444 Merrill Street.
Tree at 444 Merrill Street is an old shore pine that looks pretty ugly. Homeowner called regarding interference with utility lines. At the time of my visit, there was a widowmaker that had Pacific Power removed because it was in amongst their power lines, but the rest of the tree just needs to come out at owner expense.
I'll make a motion to remove, or approve and remove that tree.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion to remove the tree at 444 Merrill Street. It's been second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, number 4.
Same one. Yes, our favorite trees.
Yes, on Hall Avenue. And we have guests in the meeting here. Who wants to start?
I've looked at these trees, I did the inventory of all the city trees, and those are right behind my list of the Alpier's trees, of trees that are problems to the sidewalk and are falling apart. Birch trees are not street trees. And we've already been through this from the don't remove my trees side, so this is, we've got different point of views from different parts of the community in that area.
Do we have any discussion from anybody else?
What page is that on?
That is on page 36, 36 and 37.
And do we want to hear from the people that came to talk?
I think we should.
Lori?
So, am I on? It is, okay. So, as you guys have heard about these trees for years, this isn't something new. At one time, you all agreed to take the trees out and fix the sidewalk. We were all ready to go. We had a note saying that they're going to be there in a week. And a week before, okay, then the whole summer went by. And then a week before, we get a letter saying, oh, we're not going to do it. We don't have the money. So then we get it back on you guys' agenda again. And then they're like, oh, people complained, so we're not going to do it. And we don't have the money. And we found out who the people were that complained about it, and it's the people, 2 people on the opposite side of the street that thought when they got the letter that it was their trees as well. So 2 of the 3 people were misled, thinking it was their trees. And it's not, as far as I understand. It's not, it's just the side of the street that my neighbor and our houses are on. So I guess it's frustrating because we've been through this. We thought it was going to be taken care of. And then now, since then, we've heard that we have to pay to have the trees removed. We have to pay to have the sidewalks replaced. I think the city said they would remove the cement. Is that correct? The city usually takes away the cement?
Correct.
Okay. And so, you know, if they hadn't have promised that they were going to do it, if you hadn't agreed to it years ago, it probably wouldn't have been an issue. And if any of you read my letter, I paid to have the sidewalks replaced in 2004 in front of my property. They don't need to be replaced. They're still in good shape. I had to replace them because the city wouldn't do anything. It was terrible. Kids walking from school would trip and fall. It was all the time, and it was worse than any of the sidewalks now. Now there's gaps like this high. And so I did it, and didn't push the issue. You know, they cut the tree back a little bit down on the roots and stuff, and it's been fine. And so now we're seeing the same thing again, above my house toward the high school, and then down across from Janet's house. Big, huge places that the sidewalks are lifted this much, and kids trip on it. And, you know, the city cares about how we look, and, you know, a lot of people come to the high school and walk up that street and park on that street because all the activities there. People from out of town, all the games. You know, it's just sad to see that the city's not taking care of it. And then there's another tree above my place toward the high school that's leaning way out into the parking places. A truck actually hit it trying to park in that spot. So that's another thought of why they should come out. And they're sick. I hope that you all know that they are sick. Our arborist here is telling us too. In fact, Patrick Myers in May of 21 said that they're sick and they need to come out. Then we get a letter more recently that says, oh, they're healthy and they're growing, so no, they don't need to come out. And I thought that was kind of unfair. And then my next question is, if the cities, because you were talking about a tree inventory, if the city's looking for places to put trees in, this is an awesome place to put trees. You could do the whole street and make it beautiful. Not that you're going to do that. And then the next question is, are we required to put trees back in? What's the thought on that?
Could you state your name and address for the record?
Okay, Lori Lemire, 574 Hall. Okay.
Thank you.
To answer your question, typically if we remove trees and another tree can go back in that area, that is what we usually require.
But you're saying if you remove the trees? I mean, if you remove me to pay for the person to have the tree removed?
Even if the owner of the property has the tree removed, if it's sitting within the city right-of-way, we do require that you put another tree back there.
Okay, so back to when these trees were originally put in and the sidewalks were placed in probably 1923. You know, the city put these in. We didn't put them in. They're way overgrown, as everybody knows. They've been pruned and they're disfigured, huge limbs hanging, or you're talking about widowmakers, you know, these are one to happen any moment. They're pretty bad. So, again, should we be required to do that because the city has placed these trees, put the sidewalk in, have not maintained the sidewalk? Is that all of our responsibility that from a tree that was planted 75 years ago?
Would you like me to answer that?
Please.
So the direction that we've been receiving from council is that it is the owner of the real property abutting a sidewalk. They shall maintain the sidewalk in good, safe, and repair condition. They're also responsible for the street trees.
Done. I mean, I brought this up to one of your tree board members probably 10 years ago. So, I mean, is that?
So should you want to take down the trees, you can do so. It'll be at your expense.
Even though you guys agreed to do it before the new rule became in effect.
And may I interject here?
Sure.
I'm Janet Price.
Sure,
And
thank
I
you.
live at 560.
Thank you.
Next door. My biggest question and concern was people went to that meeting and they said that they were told that there's trees on both sides of Hall between 5th and 7th where it can be completely removed on their side too, and their trees are totally different than these. And when I talked to two of the neighbors, they said, yeah, that's what was going to happen. And I said, that is not what we were proposing. We just wanted our trees taken out. Had nothing to do with their side of the street. I haven't even spoke to the lady on the corner. She may decide she wants hers to be taken out too because her sidewalk's that far. I have virtually seen Lori, myself, and several kids coming down that street fall and major hurt themselves. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it, because that's a city sidewalk. The trees are in the park strip that were always responsible from the city where I came from in Utah. Anyway, different here, different rules, different time. My concern is the fact that that is such a major, major corridor for people, like she said, going to games, school every day, and the hazard is just tremendous. And I worry all the time when I found out that we can be virtually responsible to be sued if somebody decides to pursue it. And there's my biggest concern is, why didn't the city tell us about all this just before the last 2021, when this whole thing was changed around? And I got an opinion from one of the members from the city staff down there, and I'm not going to tell you. They said, well, they decided to divert the money to the urban redevelopment over at Empire. I said, this is not an expensive issue. I've got a great bid from Matt Holman, and I got a bid on the sidewalk today, and it is under $5,000. Remove them, stumps grilled, not replanted the trees, of which I would think you would pay for, and it won't touch the curb and the gutter, but that is a very reasonable price that I feel, personally, the city should take care of. We're not talking tens of thousands of dollars. If you were removing all the trees on that street, yes, that's big bucks. But the other neighbors don't want them out. So let them keep them. They're just such a mess every single day. I go out and pick limbs up, and a couple of big limbs have fallen, even a big one out in the street, and they're so diseased and they're so cancerous. They just are not a pretty tree anymore. I think they probably were, I know they're at least 40 years old. And our house was built in 1925, and yours was 21?
24.
21. So anyway, that is really important. And I think you guys should really take things seriously, take care of this, because it may eventually make the other neighbors decide, you know, theirs looks so good, let's take ours out and be conform to what's on that street. That street is one of the prettiest streets in this town. And it's because of the neighbors that live there that take care of their properties and want to make sure they're beautiful for the city, not just for us. Okay? I don't need a microphone. I've been in many of these meetings.
So what,
in Utah.
oh, I'm sorry. So
Thank you for hearing me.
I have passed around the meeting minutes from the December 28, 2021 that provides staff with direction from council on this issue related to street trees, the ones that they are going to take responsibility for, the ones that are the property owner's responsibility, as well as what the sidewalk policy is. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I know I'm just giving this to you now, as opposed to with the staff report, but I just found it here within these last few days.
So another question, or another statement, the tree that's hanging over the street that a person with a truck would hit, is that the person's responsibility that owns that house on the corner?
Per this code, it is.
So if a truck hits that, they can go to that neighbor and say, your tree's hanging out over the road, and I hit it, so you're responsible to pay for my damage to my automobile.
I guess that scenario could happen.
What did
Well,
you say?
it did happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
one of the guys that was working for me.
Yeah.
With one of those big box trucks, and he damaged his $150,000 vehicle. I didn't suggest he go to the neighbor. I felt really bad for him, but that just doesn't seem right, that you'd have something that's a hazard and it's in the street. And there's a thing that you had in your rules about keeping branches trimmed up to so many feet. Well, this is a limb about this big around. I don't know, it's just frustrating. But I guess it comes down to, you know, this was an issue before the new rules were set, so you can't honor it because the rules have changed, is what you're telling me.
This is the direction we've been given.
Okay. So my next question, which I guess you can all decide, is are we allowed to take out our 4 trees? Do you guys vote on that? And I can be done.
We'll have to discuss it here.
Okay.
I think it's a huge liability to the property owner and the city. And yes, I know Mr. Wall wants to keep the trees there, but then he needs to read this sheet and understand if somebody trips and falls in front of his house, he is liable. I think by all means, if I lived there, I would have those trees out, the sidewalk replaced, and probably put something back in, slower growing, and get another 50 years out of it. We wouldn't care in 50 years, but that's my opinion.
Agreed.
Anybody else?
I agree.
Yeah.
Those trees,
Yeah, those,
birch trees are not street trees. Those trees are way past their prime. They're a hazard. The sidewalks are horrendous, as Lori says. I've been saying that we should get rid of them for a long time, even
Yep.
before that, the last meeting with the residents on Hall Street.
But just consider the fact that you guys will pay for it. $5,000 is not a lot of money.
Well, that's a city question. We're just a tree board. That's the
So-
city.
But you recommend to the city, which is what, the city council?
we don't recommend that they pay for any, the
We
repair
do
of the
recommend it
sidewalk.
in the budget.
Right.
Who?
Can I jump in here?
You bet, Carmen.
So, yeah, so I can assure you that the city council did not decide to divert money away from this project to focus it towards Empire. It's more about creating a directive moving forward on what trees we will take responsibility for and what we cannot open ourselves to take a responsibility for throughout the entire city. So $5,000 for one location, one house is one thing. Well, what happens if there's 300 people that are experiencing this same thing? And we're talking about, you know, varying different types of structures or trees or herbs or, you know, all different kinds of scenarios. That it is a much larger thing. So it's not about this specific project. It's about moving forward in the directive that we will be, you know, focusing on our responsibility. So this particular project, I would agree that the trees need to be removed, but when it comes down to property owner responsibility, this has kind of been the direction as we've understood it for a long time, that the property owners are responsible for their sidewalks that are in front of their property, and that's kind of been normal for quite some time. And I know it sucks to have to hear that you're responsible for various things, whether it's ADA ramps or tree maintenance, but it's in my opinion, speaking personally, that is part of the property owner's responsibility. And I would, at least on behalf of the tree board, or in my position on the tree board, I would approve removal for these trees.
Is it all right if I speak again? So because you guys are agreeing that these are hazardous trees, are you going to send a letter out to all the property owners on our street and say, these trees are hazardous, we recommend you have them removed?
We sent the letter out before that went to all of the property owners there when we, initially back in 2004, when we were talking about them.
My personal opinion would, yes, send a letter to the property owners and say they're hazardous trees and they should be removed. Now, the removal, if they don't want them removed, then I guess you probably shouldn't remove them. But then that's at their own peril.
And probably something in the letter that refers to
Yes.
this
Yes, yeah.
liability.
Yes.
Yeah, and because, if it was back in 2004, there's been different changes in homeownership in the neighborhood, so that the neighbors need to know. I know my neighbors on the corner, they were relatively new neighbors, and they have no idea. They don't know any of these laws. you know, they've come from a place too that was a bigger city that had different rules and regulations, and so they need to know it. And it's just, it's sad that Coos Bay can't take care of something. You could, you know, and again, it doesn't have to be like Carmen was saying with all of the 300 people or all this big thing. You can say, well, this is a different case because we agreed to do this 10 years ago. We made this agreement with Hall Street to do it. We had it all set up. And you could say that's why they're doing it. So when other people call and complain and say, well, you did their house, how come you're not doing our house? You know, that's a thought, like to address what Carmen is saying. So that's something to consider possibly. And the whole street needs to have the trees taken out. One of them in front of Mr. Wall's house fell down, rotted, and it rotted off at the stump. I don't think he called the city and got a permit, because what do you do when a tree is rotted off, you know? I'm assuming he just called someone and had it taken out. He didn't get a permit to do that. So, anyway, those are my thoughts.
And do we have to purchase a permit to have those removed as well? In the beginning, in this whole process is approved?
So a right-of-way use permit will be needed. We need to make sure that we understand the activity being done in the right-of-way and where the impacts are going to be, just from a pedestrian and vehicle standpoint.
And how much is that permit?
You know what? I could get that information for you. We can talk after this meeting. My question, I guess, for the tree board, should they recommend that staff write a letter? And I'm late coming to this discussion, so I will fully admit that. My first instinct was to say, do we have something from a certified arborist for the other trees that say these are a damage, or these are a hazard? I think that's the language you used. And so that's what I would recommend, is if you truly want us to do that, I would recommend that you ask us to assess the other trees to make sure that they are a hazard before any letters are sent out.
Okay,
Yeah, I would agree to that.
agreeable, sure,
Yeah.
very agreeable, good idea.
I would agree to that.
So,
Yeah.
again, I'm Matt Holman, 3H Tree Service. I am a certified arborist, ISA certified arborist, PN 6605 Alpha. I've looked at these trees. Again, I'm not track certified, but these trees are a hazard. They're full of cavities and
Mr. Holman, you're talking about the trees that are in front of their homes,
the whole street.
the whole street.
All of the birch trees along the whole street are in the same condition. They're the same age, same variety. They've had the same treatment. A lot of them are not good.
And then these are also in the power lines.
Correct.
Communication
It's
lines have been trimmed numerous times. And
topped hard.
birch does not stand up to pruning well. And, you know, I'm in agreement with everything. My background is I'm a forester,
Copy.
but I'm not an arborist.
So if the go-ahead goes, we've been through this process. Now that we know how to do the process correctly, we'll aid in getting all the proper permits, the right-of-way permits, and they're probably going to want a traffic control plan and all that stuff that's going to be required for that. So we'll do what we can to walk through that process and, yeah, get it all done correctly. So, thank you.
I personally think that a letter needs to go out to all of the property owners there prior to any cutting of any of the trees, to make sure that everybody is under the same understanding that they are hazardous, and what the law, what our ordinance reads as far as who's responsible for what.
Sure.
And in that letter, you would say that we're only speaking about our 4 trees.
No, we're going to address all of the trees there.
I say.
Yeah.
All the large birch trees. that were-
Okay.
What Janet's alluding to make sure that the people across the street from us don't think it's their trees.
Right.
The question I have is if you're authorizing removal of all of them, or whether you're authorizing removal of the trees that are in front of the people's houses that have the concern. Because if you have people that want to keep their trees,
They've got,
Are we saying that they don't have to cut them?
So today, I
Or
think
have them cut?
the question before you is, there's an application from these two women to remove the trees in front of their house. I think if you allow staff to maybe step back here, take a look at this, work with a certified arborist, not that you're not, but you're representing these ladies, and then we could provide a recommendation at the next tree board meeting.
And Patrick Myers has looked at these arbors, and,
That was in the job file.
yeah. And his opinion, personal opinion, that he's said to me is that they're diseased, and even though they're still stable, they're still diseased and should come out.
but we still need to let the city do their part.
Right.
And so at this point in time, I think we're gonna table this until we have an answer from the city. And we will then let you know.
I don't think we need to table, I think we need to
I think,
approve.
yeah, we need to make a motion to
Okay.
approve the
Have
removal of
Made
these.
the application.
Correct, I think table the rest of the
Table the rest of it, okay?
rest of the trees along the street and coordinate with those property owners, please.
I have a question just to clarify what our motion might be. So this would be an approval for the tree removal request on Hall Avenue at the owner's expense, because that is what is in line with the council policy that we've been given as the tree board. I know that there were some questions that were asked about, or requests for an exception to this policy, and if the property owners wanted to pursue that further, that's something that would be a matter referred to the city council.
If they want to pursue it further, I can certainly, I think the steps are is we take it to the Public Works Director, and then the Public Works Director would coordinate with the city manager, and then if you didn't agree with that decision, then I think the next step would be city council. I don't know if the commission has any other thoughts on that.
I just wanted to make sure that those next steps were
The appeal
clarified for
process.
the people who were
Sure.
asking the questions. Thank you.
And then since it's been an issue with other landowners, I still think the letter needs to go out to the street, people in the street identifying what we're doing.
And if it's okay, I'd like to bring that back and discuss that at the next board meeting.
Sure.
Yes, I think that's appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, so we
And
can go ahead and make a
I
motion.
had one other question. Rex, you raised the issue of replacements in this area. Did you have a recommendation for that, for this particular issue, for these trees that we're approving the removal of?
Not at this time. I think we should get the trees out first, but there's a large variety of trees that could go in there that would be well suited. I know there's utility lines, so at this time, no.
May I ask one more question? Our water meter is probably that far from that tree. Now, does the water meter person need to come out and make sure it's not gonna harm it, or what?
Would you, as their arborist, like to answer that question?
That's all in our permitting process.
Okay.
The water people come out and mark the lines.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
So I will make a motion that we approve the tree removal request for Hall Avenue.
I'm gonna correct you. I want you to specifically state the addresses, please.
Okay. I'll amend my motion to say that I move that we approve the tree removal request for 560 Hall Avenue and 574 Hall Avenue.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to allow the removal of the trees at 560 Hall Avenue and 574 Hall Avenue. Any further discussion on this?
I'd just jump in and say I appreciate the residents for their patience in this, and I'm sorry that it's not as streamlined or as easy as we would all like it to be. But hopefully this is a direction that gives you control over what you want to what you want to be able to accomplish. So thanks for hanging in there with us.
Thanks, Arna. Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the motion carried. City will be in touch with you.
Okay. So what's our next step? Just, we're approved?
So you're approved to remove the trees in front of your house, but now we need to work on getting you a permit to do that. and I can work with yourself or your representative.
So it doesn't have to go to the city council?
Not unless you appeal the decision. Even then, I would recommend we take that to the Public Works Director and the city manager first.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more tree removal request at Modern Floors out on Ocean Boulevard. And that starts on 53.
Years ago, several trees were planted on some property
No,
adjacent to Modern Floors. Those trees were planted right up next to the curb line. And as they've grown, they're starting to push the curb and break up the curb. We've had a citizen concern that I responded to, and I've talked to the property owner. He's agreeable to remove the trees. We just want to go ahead and get that approval from the tree board.
I approve the request. These trees are too close to the street. They cause parking problems, as you can see.
Yep.
And sidewalk problems.
Yep.
They're not street trees, in my opinion.
Well, and there's got a couple of them that are really kind of damaged on the trunks, and looks like they've been either cut at or whatever. Anyway, I think they should be removed. Do we have any discussion here?
Well, it just, to me, it looks like they're not in conformance with the street tree ordinance, section 7, as far as distance from the curb.
So due to this, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move that we allow removal of the 4 trees and grind stumps below grade at the abutting property owner's expense.
We're going to require grinding.
I would say that we approve. Do we require?
Well, I think due to the close proximity to the curb there, that you can't leave the stump sitting up there. That becomes almost a bigger hazard than,
If you cut those
Tree.
stumps to the ground level, I don't see a reason to grind them there. But that's not my call, but I would not require grinding. I'm speaking of from a forester's point of view, not a.
okay. Anybody else have any comments about that?
I would agree that grinding those would be difficult, and they're not gonna, there's no sprouting or coppice with those pine trees, so I don't really think we need to worry about it.
You're right next to the concrete there, and that would be difficult with a grinder.
Kind of hard in the chainsaw chain, but I guess they sharpen.
Well, you can get them down within an inch, and so
Yeah.
that would get rid of the problems.
Yeah.
So,
I think one thing I would point out is those stumps do need to be pulled down to a certain ground level. Even a quarter of an inch can present a trip hazard, so with that in mind, in order to keep this safe for citizens, I don't think Councilor Carmen is wrong in his assessment that whether they're ground or removed or whatever, they need to be pulled down to ground level.
Right.
yeah, so they can be removed, which can include grinding, but it must be removed to below grade of these 4 trees at a property owner's expense.
Okay, we have a motion. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we allow the trees there on Dunn Street to be removed, the 4 short pines, and if necessary, have them ground or at least below
Below grade.
grade. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion's carried.
Next.
Now, I've been told that the Teakwood project, the plaza development project, has been removed from the agenda.
I don't think
I got that this morning.
So the
I-
applicant-
I did not remove it.
Yeah,
I-
no, just if I can fill you in, the applicant resubmitted their plans a week ago, and they provided trees on the approved tree list. So this issue's been closed,
Okay, that being
from
said.
a Teakwood development standpoint.
That being said, that's fine. I need to step away from the tree board and present a case that's even bigger than Teakwood Plaza, something that I
Do-
don't think ever got squared away.
Sure, do we need to make that an agenda item, or, I mean, how does that work? If this deviates from the agenda, is this a new item?
It was on this paper that says agenda. So as long as it's on this paper that says agenda for this meeting.
So the agenda was to discuss the teakwood trees that were proposed for that development,
Yes.
and the applicant removed the trees that didn't conform with the street tree list, and they added trees that did.
I have not seen the added trees.
I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
The applicant submitted that last week for the record, and actually, I think the permits are being issued here in the next day or so.
Okay. Well, let me address what I came to address. Rex Miller, 63109 West Ketching Inlet Road, Coos Bay. Back in 1992, Cora and I were on the tree board, we're on the initial tree board for Tree City USA. We received a grant to become Tree City USA, and in that grant, we would establish a tree board and continue a tree board. The whole idea behind the tree board in Tree City USA was to give trees in a city and make it look like it's not just a hit and miss jungle. It was supposed to have some continuity, and so in that we decided to make, or the tree board decided to come up with an approved list. Now that approved list was for the street trees on main corridors. It was not every tree in Coos Bay. The example I give you is if you lived in a residential or even a commercial area and it was not a main corridor and you wanted to plant a tree in the right-of-way, that should be your right, as long as you're not planting a sequoia on a corner, or you're not planting a poplar under power lines. Now, I was on Teakwood, it was stated that the trees that I put in on the right-of-way were not on the approved tree list. True, I agree, but the trees that were put in the major corridors were, what's in red are maples, the bottom there being 101. Those are on the main corridor, state highway. The blue above that is on a secondary street. That secondary street is not a major highway, is not a major collector. The point of the Tree City USA and coming up with a list was to have continuity like we have. All the trees they planted in Empire and Newmark, all of them on 4th Street, all of them on Anderson, the East Side Corridor, those are state highways, those are all major corridors, and that is important to have the approved list from the approved trees. On the rest of the streets, you can't jeopardize, and what this does is jeopardize every homeowner from planting what he wants. If you wanted an Asian pear and you lived over here on 5th Street, and it was in the right of way, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to plant that. You should not be held to this list. So that is the point with Teakwood Plaza. Those trees, no, they're not approved, but more important, the big buildings, first of all, you're supposed to supposed to have a buffer between residential and commercial. They're Leyland cypress. The blue is Leyland cypress. That's a perfectly good buffer for that. Yeah, nobody above that wants to look at parking lots and look at buildings. That's a residential neighborhood above. It's a very good street. There are no conifers on the approved tree list. Well, there's place for conifers. If somebody had to put a hot tub in their on their back porch, and they had a neighbor above them, and it was an alley, not a vacated alley, but an alley, and they wanted to put fir trees in there to block the view, more power to them. That should be acceptable. So my big point here today is we need to differentiate between secondary streets and primary streets. And I think, I'm just going to take a shot at this. The way I think we would do that is go back into to the code, section 17.362, number 11, and we would add an E to that. And that E would say, trees on the approved street tree list are to be used on major corridors and state-owned highways. Trees planted in the right-of-way on secondary, commercial, and residential streets are at the discretion of the adjacent landowner as long as meeting vision clearance is maintained. Now, I don't know if we can add that through resolution. Maybe this goes to the Planning Commission. But I think we need an amendment to the code stating that yes, on the major streets, you bet. We need to keep them looking the same. We need some continuity, primarily maples. That's what's been done in the past. But on the secondary streets, no, that should be up to the owner. And so now I would ask, where is the fault in that, if there is one?
And that is the way it is right now, because Fifth Street is a menagerie of things that were planted by landowners. And I see that in other places too, because I've seen the trees.
True.
Yes.
So I guess my question is, does every public right-of-way in the city of Coos Bay, if you were to plant a tree, have to come from that approved tree list?
So on the approved tree list, Rex, it looks like there's street trees suited for sidewalk areas along major streets. And then there's another category, I guess, if you will, for street trees for less busy streets or residential areas. And then below that, it gives us a list of trees not to be used as street trees. And this was from the tree list updated on February 4th, 2015 in my my City of Coos Bay Tree Board handbook here. And it does have a distinction there that it says no evergreens on public streets. So maybe if we want to reconsider that, you know, maybe we could remove that language in this part of, you know, our handbook here, or amend it somehow to include, you know, circumstances like that. Because I'm not opposed to, you know, having a variety of trees. You know, it just, I think I agree that you said the purpose of the tree board was to have some continuity, you know, along major corridors and such, and but on in the residential areas and what it should have, you know, some list or number of trees that, you know, maybe could be considered. But I mean, there's however many thousands of trees out there that, you know.
If I can interject something.
Certainly.
Most of the board currently, with the exception of Rex, myself, and I think Meredith, were, when Randy Dixon was still here, this list that you're talking about was developed, but was still in a quote-unquote draft mode, because we had not come to any strong decision as to what exactly we were going to list. And I agree with Rex that people should be able to plant a variety of different types of trees, as long as they are not interfering with power lines and with traffic, either traffic, vehicular traffic, walking traffic, the sidewalks, etc. If we stick only to those trees that are listed on this list, we're cutting out a huge amount of ornamental and type trees that people can use. And personally, my husband and I have 30-some trees on our 50 by 110-foot lot. And if I were to have to go to the city tree list, and I don't think I have anything that's on the city tree list that's in my yard. And I would be totally irritated, and I would be before the council, because that's not, to me, is not acceptable. We have to do things that are, encompass a variety of people, not just what, I agree. We have to have ones that gear towards the major corridors. But in some of these other areas, we can't be so strict.
Yeah. That was never the intent of the law, of the ordinance. That was never the intent. The intent of the ordinance was to create a city that's got nice structure on their major highways, the collectors in their major highways for street trees. And that was the intent. How this got weaved into it, I don't know, but I think it needs to be either taken out by resolution or an amendment to the section 17.36.
I know that when we were still discussing this, and I think it was back prior to 2015, that we were even going to do some public service announcements that dealt with the planting of trees in the city, and informing, community members that if they had questions, they can come to the tree board and talk to us about what they felt that they could, what would be acceptable to plant. Because, the majority of people out here do not understand the dynamics of trees.
True.
Thank you, Meredith. I was drawing a blank. I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't say it. And so I think we need to give them, a kind of a blank canvas with which to work from. We can't be so strict that we're declining some of these beautiful, species to be planted.
Right.
I think on that secondary list, I was always under the assumption that was a suggested tree list and not.
Agreed.
Not structured so that they couldn't plant anything beyond that.
Right.
But the structure of the primary travel routes was more tightly reined. And I think it's still our job to decide what tree goes where, on a large scale basis, but not to limit personal choice in areas that are not a problem to the city streets.
I would agree with that.
Okay, we're out of time. So do we need to make a motion on this?
I think we do.
I don't think you can make a motion if it wasn't an agenda item. And I leave it to you folks, but I have your charter here. If you want, we can bring this back, but the agenda item was to discuss either denying or approving the teakwood tree request.
Well, I don't think we're talking about the teakwood, specifically the teakwood product.
Okay.
I think we're talking about number 6. About this.
So we've moved on to number 6.
Yes, yeah.
So then can we just have a bit more discussion? So it's the 2014-15 tree list never officially got approved, and I think that was mentioned here. So right now, the 1995 list is still referenced on the city's website. And so if you want to make a recommendation to change the ordinance, which is where the tree board is also where Chapter 17, the Development Code, then you certainly can do that, and we can bring that to the Public Works Director.
Carmen, do you have you're seeing it from both sides. Do you have opinions? You're on the board, aren't you? The
City Council.
City Council?
Yeah.
Yes. I think in terms of the right-of-way, that needs to be very specific. In terms of your private property, that's different. You know, I have a small piece of property and I have crazy amounts of trees on it as well, and I have plans for that and how it's gonna look. But when it comes to right-of-way and, you know, those kinds of zones, I think it does need to be more prescribed. That being said, I like the distinction between, you know, main arterial roads and then, you know, residential or, you know, light commercial zones. You know, I'm thinking of my own personal space right here. I have an alleyway behind my house that's, you know, it's not used primarily by the public, but it's still a right-of-way, and it should be regarded as such if I was going to plant something in that area, mostly because there's power lines. And so I'm totally fine with amending the list to include certain types of trees. I think the prescribed trees for arterial roads totally makes sense. Rex, I think your approach to this is great, and I trust your judgment on this. As someone who's not, you know, well-versed in all types of trees, I think that's important for me to look to you for guidance. That being said, someone with a 50 by 100 lot that plants a giant sequoia,
Yes.
will get 300 feet, that's kind of scary, but is that something that we should be restricting? I don't know if we can, or I
don't think we can.
No, Carmen, not on personal property, but you tell me this, if you want to plant a Coos River Beauty in that alley between, that is city property, should that be okay? If you wanted to put something in there? What this law now, what the ordinance now is stating is, no, that forbids you from planting that alleyway, which is public property, forbids you from doing that. And that's my whole point to this, is that we need to be more broad spectrum with what can be planted, whether it be the, and this is in the secondary residential, secondary street commercial area, in that zone between the sidewalk and the street, that mow strip, or a non-vacated alley. Those are public property, and those are the areas that I'm addressing with this, and I think we should be more broad opened.
Agreed.
Yes.
I agree.
Cora?
Yes.
I agree. I think it should be more broad, but it still comes down to the property owners being liable for damages created by their choices.
Well, they would be anyway if it's on their property. I mean, they are going to be responsible for it.
But it's not their property. We're talking about the right-of-way.
If we're talking about right-of-way trees.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're talking about right away.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's still one of those things that if you plant this tree in the right-of-way, which is abutting your property, you are still going to be liable for the damages occurred from your decision, but and for the maintenance of that tree. So if it's near a power line, that's going to be your cost and your responsibility.
I think that's where we were in the secondary tree list, as we were trying to identify trees that would be suitable. And even if we created that, changed that to be, you could choose a tree to put in there, but still have it approved by the tree board, we're still dealing with the issues of compatibility with the site. And I think that's what I was looking at that when we reviewed that list.
That's what my thought was too. And
Yep.
It's still the tree species needs to be approved by the tree board, even though if it's not on the list, because there's so many trees that are available, we can't go through all of them. We can't make a confined list of the ones
Right.
that are suitable. We
We'd have a whole
give
book full.
options and then leave it open. That would be my choice.
we'd have a whole book full if we
Right.
had to
Yeah.
try and make a list.
So, thinking about next steps, I'm just looking at what the municipal code says. The question was raised, do we need to change an ordinance or something like that? And I don't see any need for that because it references that we as a tree board will develop this plan. So it's really part of our manual and our operations as a committee. But I think it would be wise for us to place that plan revision on our next meeting agenda, so that we can hopefully either officially adopt or expand those recommendations that came from 2015 that apparently were not actually officially adopted. I agree with Meredith that it's going to be a lot easier to come up with a list of prohibited trees.
Yes.
So maybe taking a look at that and making sure that our list there is really solid and encompasses the things that we think would be inappropriate in that right of way. And then I like Rex's suggestion to define these different zones, the heavy commercial, light, mixed use, and perhaps expand the list that was even developed in 2015, positioning that as a preferred list or maybe suggested list, and perhaps including some language about how residents might approach the board if they'd like an exception to that list. And that might give people the opportunity to plant other things if they would like to, but as Meredith said, give us the opportunity to review it. It's really important to have biodiversity and the variety of different trees, just for the well-being of our city's environment, but I think that this is definitely something we need to take on at the next meeting.
So I really like your approach. I might have misheard Rex. I thought you were asking the private citizen that's not on a major arterial collector to put in whatever tree they wanted in the right-of-way, and that's not how this reads.
Right.
And that's where I thought that Rex was coming from. The only thing that when you guys, for discussion for the next tree board, because it ultimately has to go to council for approval. And if you don't craft a list in such a way that you're constantly getting requests because you guys want approval authority, it is going to delay development. It is going to delay issuing permits because you guys only meet quarterly. So try to keep that in mind when you're crafting the list, to where you only get a handful or maybe not even that many requests for approval, that you get this list that is really something staff can take and implement. And that's what staff's doing today. I understand that may not be the intent, but that's how the code reads. So definitely, we want to work with you on this.
I don't think that that's reasonable, because I think we've determined what primary trees are suitable.
For
but
corridors.
For secondary trees, it's site specific.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a tree that with lots, it loses lots of stuff.
Yeah.
You get leaf
There's-
problems, et cetera. That's going to depend on the site. And if you've got a fruit bearing tree, that's going to depend on the site.
Yeah.
So I think we have to have some say as to specifics. And I don't think you can craft a list that's pretty set in stone.
No, and the code is what held up this project, because the code
Yep.
said we couldn't use trees unless they were on the list. So it needs to get back to the beginning. We need to make an amendment to the code. That would give us some flexibility, because there is not a tree that you could mention that I couldn't find a place in Coos Bay for, unless it's a hazard tree. There's a place for every tree. But that is on, I think.
Site-specific, no.
Right,
Yes.
right. If everything was okay, but then you had to bring it before the tree board in a certain instance, then that would make a lot more sense than trying to narrow this thing down to a few things that are on the list.
I would agree with that. So let's
So,
table
can I
it
hop
and
in?
work on it next time.
We're hearing two different things, I
Yep,
think.
we gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I hop in on here?
Quickly.
Okay. I really want to speak to Jennifer's point. She's trying to make it as easy as possible for developers to do what they need to do, and for staff to give them an approved direction. And by us saying, well, it has to be site-specific, we are really gumming up the wheels. And that, I don't like that at all, personally. So, I mean, I think we gotta make this as easy as we can on our staff, and we need to make it so that there is a clear, easy directive for developers to put in what they need to put in. So I think a decent list is a good thing, suggested list. If anything else wants to come before the before the tree board, then that, is, okay based on approval. But Jennifer, I really appreciate you focusing on the fact that we need to get this, this list made streamlined so that the staff has the ability to do what they need to do to help development.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll go ahead and adjourn.
I think we need to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Good for you.
Oh,
Good for you.
Oh, we actually don't have to do that anymore per the ORS. They go online with the video recording, so they're all the minutes from last meeting is all on video with timestamps to go through, so we no longer have to approve meeting minutes at meetings anymore.
Perfect.
good.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Do that planning.
Check on that for my